one, and I asked all the board members to please get their microphones on, please. I'll call the August 8th, 2017 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We have Mr. Jim Turnell from Baker's Chapel Pentecostal Holiness Church to do our invocation tonight, and I would ask everyone to please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Gracious, loving, kind Father, we thank you today. We ask your blessings upon this meeting. Thank you for leaders in our county. We ask, God, that you would give them wisdom and instruction. We thank you for your ever prevalent and wonderful time that we get to come before you and love you and know that you are ultimately our Father. Thank you for this beautiful day. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome everyone, and we'll move right into our agenda for citizens' time. We have Mr. Cox is signed up first. Please state your name and your address, please.
Okay, name's Roy Cox, Pope Road. Most of you know why I'm here anyways. Ain't no need to address it. I know Joe Hale does. That road is getting so rough every time it rains, and washboards and ditches, and school's starting tomorrow and the road's still in bad shape. They did scrape it, but it's down into the mud when it rains. So I asked Mr. Horney to get Jeff Russell to bring some gravel, so he said he would. But what I'd like to do is you guys push as hard as you can to get that road moved up on the list. Because I don't know if anybody's in a need more than we are. So whatever y'all can do, I sure appreciate it. And there's a bridge. What's the story on it?
We got some bad news on it. What did Mr. Russell or Mr. Fowler say at our last meeting about the bridge, that it didn't make the cut?
Didn't make the cut on the funding for the bridge. So,
This year, and they's going to try again in the spring.
Stephen. The latest I heard, it was on priority list to get her done, but must have jumped off of it.
Well, we've never been told it's on a priority list. I know they put in for it, and it didn't score high enough to get on the list. So, and I think it's what Mr. Fowler said, wasn't it? Joe, do you have?
Yeah, but well, they just keep kicking the can down the road. And I was going to ask Stephen, well, we get time, will you see if you can arrange a meeting and let's go talk to the district engineer in Bristol? That will help more than anything we can do, is get out of this office here and get their attention on it.
Okay.
We'll try that route, see if we make any progress that way.
Anything y'all can do, appreciate it. Anything.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Next, Donna Umberger. Good evening, Ms. Umberger.
Good evening, gentlemen.
And please.
Hope everybody's enjoyed this beautiful day.
And you would please give your address.
Excuse me?
Give your address.
228 Gillen Road, Max Meadows, Virginia. And I've just got a little paper to pass out to you guys, if you don't mind. Uh-oh, I missed one.
Tim, this is the one I want to answer.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
I have the color photo, and Mr. Sage was going to put it in the Enterprise before this meeting, but the picture was so grainy till it just would not print in the paper. But I expect without the picture, it's going to be in Wednesday's paper anyway. I need to say good evening, gentlemen, which I did, and I'd also like to say good evening to the ladies and the gentlemen these are all my neighbors, and we have an issue, as you can see with this house. There are 16 homes and families in our neighborhood. It's on Gillen Road at Fort Chiswell. The house is in very disrepair. The yard has not been mowed. It's getting pretty high. It's a disgrace to our community. It devalues our property. Different ones have offered to sell it just to get something done. They won't talk to us. They own the lot that the house is on, they own that, and the lot to the left. They own, it's probably 200 by 200 back. It's a disgrace to our neighborhood. We have a lady that lives next to this property on the right-hand side that recently developed Lyme's disease. I cannot tell you that it came from that property, but I can't tell you that it didn't, because there's snakes, there's skunks, there's every wild animal that lives in that high grass, because that's where wild animals live. This lady got Lyme's disease. She lost her job. Well, besides Lyme's disease, she lost her job, she lost her insurance, she's lost her income. She is so blocked in, she can't see anything in there except the house directly across the street. She's just totally blocked in. And the rest of us, we have friends and, well, we've got people that are disabled, retirees, and people that work that have to drive by this all the time. We have visitors, we have out-of-town visitors to our Wythe County. And the ones that I have had visitors from, the first question they want to know, what's going on down the street? It's like, I just really can't tell you. I said, I've called my supervisor, Mr. Hale. I have called you about it.
When was that?
Excuse me?
When have you called me about it?
I don't have the exact date, but I asked you if you'd please ride by and look at it and bring it before the board.
I did. I went by. I go up and check on Warren, by the way, quite often, so I know how bad it is.
And he's at Carrington Place right now.
Yeah.
But did you report back to the Board of Supervisors of what you saw?
Once we got an ordinance, which we have now, and Mr. Barry be glad to give you a copy. There's not only yours, this fellow back here on the end, he's got one in his neighborhood the same way. And we have an ordinance now that we never had before that will deal with this problem, but we have to have a citizen's complaint. And that's the way the ordinance
Do
is
we
written.
have it? We've got it.
All right, somebody has to formally, Steve, tell her what the ordinance says about the complaint.
Well, basically, if Ms. Margaret, if I can work with you and I'll use your contact information and call you and talk to you about it, we will start the process. We will have our officers take a look at it, that we received a complaint on this property. They will take a look at it, see what violations there are of the ordinance, and then we will proceed from there. And I'll keep you informed during that entire process.
Okay. Is there a time frame involved in this at all?
And it, basically, the ordinance requires that the violation go to the court, and then the court rules on it. So it would be up to the court's time frame in that. It's not anything that establishes, it's not like a town property maintenance ordinance that gives them 30 days to clean it up, or we come out there and mow it and build it for it, or things like that. It doesn't address that, and it's not set up like that. So no, there's not a time frame that I can give you on it. But we can start looking at it and see what we can do to address the problem.
But to make it work with the court, Arlen has to come and look at it. I've looked at it, I agree with you, it's a nuisance and a blight on the community. There's one over in Western Pines that's the same way. We've got action going now on 4 of them, haven't we?
3 or 4, the resignations, yes.
That where we've actually had the complaint, so it's a brand-new ordinance, and praying the help of the court, they'll nail them to the max of what the ordinance says.
And you're gonna give me a copy of the ordinance?
I'll be glad.
I'd appreciate it. I guess that's about all I got to say. But is there anyone in here that would like to live beside that property? You have the picture. Would you like to live beside of it? Would you, Mr. Hausman?
Well, no, ma'am, I don't think anybody would.
Would you? Would you? Would you?
No, that's why we worked hard to get an ordinance.
Would you, Coy? Would you? We don't want to either. And I'm here to ask for help, whatever it takes. I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate my support from our community. We're all taxpayers in this county, and I just think we deserve to be, something needs to be done, it needs to be reconciled some way or another.
Ms. Sandberg, who owns this property? You, who?
Chad Porter.
Family of Chad Porter, I think his mother lived in it, she passed away.
That's right.
Chad Porter.
There's 2 of those boys, but I don't believe either one of
Curtis.
them lives in.
I don't think they even live in Wythe County.
This is 155 Gillen Lane. Is that correct?
It's making our property less valuable. It's hurting every single one of us. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you's hard work, and whatever it takes to help us, I'm begging, please.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you, Ms. Sandberg, and thank all y'all for coming tonight. And, Mr. Matthews?
My name is Paul Matthews. I live on 1542 Pope Road. Still have a complaint on the road. And from Powder Mill going out to Flat and start up the grade, it's a drain pipe across the road there that's been stopped up probably about 15 years. When the water builds up, it overflows in the road. A lot of times it goes through there, and after a hard rain, half the road is covered with water because the drain is stopped up and can't drain nothing out. Get up top of grade there, start down towards Wawa Lane. It's an air drain pipe down there that's been stopped up about 15 years, and nothing runs through it. And when it comes to hard rain, it washes down the road, washes gutter road out and everything else. Going up grade from Powder Mill Road on Pope Road there, that road is, some places it's barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass. You can't pass a truck or something on that grade at certain points. When you get off the hard top, it's nothing but a ditch about that deep on the side of the road. That ditch needs to be filled up along there to make a kind of a shoulder with heavy rock that will form kind of a shoulder, because you get off the surface of the road, you're in the ditch. And when you go in the ditch, you're on the bottom. And the car don't go. So need, if possible, get a few loads of gravel, put in that ditch line and build it up to make a little bit of shoulder on each side of the road. It would help a lot.
Well, we'll get in touch with Mr. Russell. I know we've asked him for them drain pipes to be cleaned out before, And I went through there about a month ago, 'cause I wanted to look and see where the bridge had washed out, and I went all the way through Pope Road. And it needs some work done to it, but about the drain pipes and see if they can haul some gravel in down there. We'll do what we can with VDOT.
When they scrape a road, they'll run a ditch line over at the end of them drain pipes, but it ain't no water runs through them. The water just builds up and stands there till it soaks in and disappears.
Well, I know
And also on that bridge, Pope Road Bridge, Guava Lane Bridge, or where it is, low water bridge, something needs to be done about that. I don't understand how a bridge or something can be washed out and 2 years later, it's never nothing done about putting anything back. I don't understand that.
Well, I mean,
We could take it up with the governor,
Well,
find out why it can't be done.
well, that's, we talked to VDOT, but like I said, VDOT's a state agency. They're governed by the General Assembly and the governor. And call your representatives, and, just like we do. And we complain, and we can do all we can do and talk to the district engineer and see what we can get done. But, all we can do is ask. We can't make them do anything.
When it first washed out, them pillars that broke off the top of them could have been formed and re-poured, and the bridge set back in. And in 2 weeks' time, we'd had the bridge back. But
Yeah, but they say they will not.
hauled the bridge away, closed the road, and that was it.
Yeah, they say they will not build a low-water bridge anymore, so.
So,
I
thank
don't
you
know
for your
what to tell
time.
you. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. That is everybody that's signed up to speak during citizens' time, but I will, if anybody else would like to speak, I'll leave the floor open for a moment. Hearing none, I'll close citizens' time. Okay, moving on into our agenda. We have the minutes of our previous meeting, July the 25th, 2017. Entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
Have a second? Second. Have a motion and second. Any corrections or changes? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
I'll abstain, I was absent.
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item on the agenda is payment of invoices. Entertain a motion to pay the invoices.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any invoice any board member would like to pull out or question? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Old business. Mr. Byrd, anything under old business we need to take care of?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of anything under old business.
Okay.
May I ask,
Yes.
I've gotten a couple of phone calls, again, about the noise ordinance. Could I ask if we could contact the sheriff's office to see actually how many calls he has received about somebody shooting a gun or having their dogs bark? I don't know. The person that calls me, I think, is going on what other people have told him, and I said that I would try to get some correct data. So, I mean, is that reasonable?
Yeah,
to
I
ask
mean,
that?
I'd like to know too, and
I'd like to add one, because this is just as ridiculous as what you're hearing. Ask also how many about cattle balling.
Oh, have you had calls about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're picking on the farmers, too.
Well, if anybody was going to wean cattle, I knew that was probably coming.
I do know that they had one complaint, I guess down on Lots Gap Road, the ones that Mr. Shooks and them had come in. I think they did call on them shooting up there, and there's a state code that protects gun ranges from local noise ordinances.
But that's
But-
not a gun range.
But, yeah, I'd like the state to verify what an actual
Well,
gun range is.
I think that's what happened is that some people are getting nervous that they think that, well, they can't go out in the field behind their house and shoot their gun, and that's not what this ordinance is is about. But if we could find out that data, just so have some real numbers.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I don't know how we approach this or if we approach it at all about the noise ordinances. I've gotten a complaint, about the racetrack, not the racetrack, itself, except for the fact that they said that last Saturday night they ran until about 1:30. That does kind of, once it gets to midnight and beyond, that does kind of put it in an area where it's starting to interfere with people. But again, I know sporting events are exempt. I don't know if we can just have a conversation with Mr. Brown and ask him. I don't know how the schedule goes. I've never been up there since they built it.
Did it rain last Saturday? Most of the time, the only time they have it after midnight if they get started late.
Yeah.
I know that.
How many have and how many wrecks they have?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just passing that along because it came to me, and I thought that this was probably the appropriate place.
I know that I'd had an email on the racetrack too, how we could leave it out. When everybody up and down that holler hills, remember Saturday night, which, I mean, it's a sporting venue, and it brings a lot of people in with it.
Oh, it does. It does, and of course I hear it, at my house too. But I can understand the idea that after it gets past midnight, and people are going to, want to go to bed so that they can get up and go to church on, Sunday morning. Hope they're going to church on Sunday morning. So I can see how that's, interferes somewhat. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on our old business? Hearing none, we'll go into new business. And first item under new business, Building and Grounds Committee report.
It's going to take a little bit more time than usual because I think y'all all have the paperwork. The Building and Grounds Committee had recommended a couple of things. One, the first one, easy, is to put up these directional signs around the courthouse and the building here, so people that come have an opportunity to find the office they're looking for. The design appears to be good, and whatever place you approach, it'll show you how to get to the clerk's office or to the different courts. And this is sort of a complicated complex here, so the recommendation of the committee was for $3,550 to buy and erect these signs around the courthouse and appendage buildings, and also that when they need resurfaced, you just get a disc and resurface the sign so you don't have to replace the whole sign. That's a recommendation from committee.
Okay, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Open the floor for discussion. And I will say, from working down there time to time, you wouldn't believe the people have no clue where General District Court, where Circuit Court, where the clerk's office is at, Juvenile Court, and the county offices are at. I mean, they haven't a clue. So it'll be nice to get something posted that shows an overview of where they're at and the position of the buildings and them labeled where everything's at. Does anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yeah.
And the chair votes aye. Next item.
The next one is a little bit more complicated. At the time the committee met, we had 3 bids or proposals, and apparently at that time, Wythe Sheet Metal had the low price. They come back and declared a mistake in what they looked at. They had priced residential type boiler replacements for 2 boilers in county building next door, and there had been a gas leak here that wasn't highly reported, but it had been a gas leak, and checking the boilers, those two boilers are unsafe. But at that time, they were apparent low. Since then, they've come back, looked at it, went up on their price, so they're no longer the low bidder. Their price at that time was $19,995, so there's no mistake about what price they put in. But they were given an opportunity to put in a corrected price, and that changed who the low bidder was. So our recommendation now with the committee is to go with the apparent low bidder that understood the job, and their price is $23,000. That's why they wasn't low the first time. There's a difference there of about $4,000 and some dollars. That's right. So recommendation committee is to go with apparent low bidder. It was, the county staff has checked them out. They're competent and capable of doing the business, doing the repair work in a safe manner. Also, they have worked on this system before. They understood what they were looking at. Maybe the other people missed something or said they did. And also, we ask at committee level that along with these, and we're going to follow this, that safety device be put in there if it ever happens again, that we'll get an alarm that there's gas leaking in that boiler room. I don't know why they weren't there to start with, but now's the time to correct it. Recommendation committee is to go with Century Service Incorporated here in Wythe, and that's a recommendation at $23,894.82.
Okay.
If I might, I would request that, since it's a change from original committee, that be a motion before the board. And actually, the motion is to amend and appropriate the $23,895, so that we can have that in the budget.
Okay, since this hasn't come through the committee and the committee hasn't voted on it, I will require a second on the motion.
I'll make it say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any question or discussion? And these are the boilers in the judicial complex?
Yes, it is. And this is, it all happened very quickly here. I was in here on that Saturday working, when I came out, the fire department and Atmos Energy were sitting out front, so I went down to dispatch to find out where the problem was, and went over to the sheriff's office. Dispatch had actually been the one, there's an exhaust vent that comes out of the law enforcement judicial center, and the dispatchers were the ones that actually coming in had noticed the gas smell, and they made a call to have it checked. And down there in the law enforcement judicial center, there are 4 boilers that are in there, and the gentleman from the gas company came in. There was a gas leak in there. He shut the gas off on everything, and he said, we don't do repairs on this. That's not another thing. You'll need to have somebody come in here. So on Monday morning, individuals came in and took a look at it and said, and they were actually the individuals of Century Services. They said it's going to need boiler replacements. So we had the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting Tuesday morning, so we quickly got the quotes Monday afternoon on the boiler replacements, and with sheet metal bid was based on the information that they had been provided. When they came out here after that recommendation to start looking at it, they realized what they had priced based on what they understood did not work, and they submitted the revised prices in, and those just came in today. They were working on that to be prepared for you all to vote, to have everything lined up. So, but we certainly agree with what Mr. Hale recommended. There needs to be a sensor in there because the vent draws all that air out as it should, but it needs to have an alarm system, and that has been worked on, been installed as well.
Mr. Mayor, we can vote on it, but we talked about one other thing. I hope you took it to engineering. we can save some money on this over the next few years. Mr. Vaughn, jump in if you'd like to. If we take some excess heat off of that, one of those boiler lines, and pre-warm the tap water that's going into the electric water heater for the whole complex, put it all in one insulation encasement, we can pre-warm that water that's going in the boiler and save a lot of electricity.
We are looking at that, and actually, it's already on a circulation system right now, so the water is recirculating, so we're already getting some of that, but that has been looked at as well, to see if
Okay.
it makes, if a takeoff off of that, wrapping that water line makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to amend and appropriate $23,894.82 and award the bid to Century Services. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Yeah,
All right,
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. See anything else from Building and Grounds?
no, that's it.
Okay, next item is debris collection report.
Provided for informational purposes, just to let you know, Mr. Farley is working on our grant and our grant reports for some of our litter prevention efforts and pulling information off all these reports to show our performance over the past year. But that program continues to work well.
I'd like to, request that, we do an article, a story on this, and put it in the Enterprise and run it, inform the people just how much debris that we're picking up off the county roads, and maybe that will deter some of these people from throwing stuff out their window. I mean, it's getting, I live on a service road, Chapman Road, and they come by and pick it up one day. And I went to the barn 2 days ago, and there said a brand new chariot blowed off somebody's vehicle, and they just picked it up out of the road and just set it at the barn. And it busted all to pieces for me to get rid of. So, it's getting bad. They clean it up, and it comes right back in 2 or 3 days. It's almost as bad as it was before they picked it up. Okay, surplus auction equipment auction.
I'll turn that over to Ms. Collins.
Handout on your desk that you just received. There's a 2018 parts order. There's a lot of this one is regular vehicles but bids are there for you, declare surplus and bids.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to declare these 2 items surplus and accept the bids.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, second, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
The chair votes aye. Okay. Draft Rural Retreat Lake Agreement. I know most of us heard about this agreement at the Joint Governing Bodies meeting, but I'll let Mr. Bear, for the benefit of Mr. Willis, that couldn't make it that night, go over what has changed.
Yeah, basically, just want to give this to you. I had a follow-up meeting a couple months ago with DGIF in Marion. I received an email, and we went through some revisions. I received an email about 2 weeks ago that the agreement had moved forward to the Department of General Services. So at that point in time, I want to give a copy to you all in this board package just for you all to see. The general things that I'll report is basically when you come into Rural Retreat Lake, the fairgrounds is on your right. There is 60-plus acres of land on the right there that is part of the property that we currently lease. We don't use it for any purpose. It's basically been land that we have had to mow and bush hog over there. There's been some hunting that's gone on up there, and the local biking community has built several trails up in there. But DGIF's goal is to remove all of that property from our lease. The rest of the lake property to the left of the road, coming in, all that would remain in our lease. From where you first get to the lake and turn into the lake all the way to the store, DGIF will still lease us all that property, but that land between the road and the lake, they will convert into pollinator fields. And they will develop it to make habitat suitable for bees and wildlife and others. We still will keep trails to the lake and trails through that for the hiking trails in the process. Our goal is that it hopes that it does not worry about complaints that we may get of having an overgrown area heading into the lake in the future. Hopefully, they can keep us with an attractive look, and they are doing this at some of their fish hatcheries and places like that with the pollinator fields. The impact on us is, other than aesthetically, it just means we don't have to bush hog and mow that 20-some acres there. We keep the campground, the shelters, the pool, the disc golf course. There is a language in here that basically we don't build anything new or expand any buildings. I requested if we had to tear down a bathhouse and to rebuild like the small two-stall bathhouses, if they had to be enlarged 10% or so because of ADA standards or something, that would be acceptable. The term of the lease is for 10 years. And at the end of the lease, should it not be renewed, we would have to remove the swimming pool and the disc golf course. The other item, some people like, some don't like, they want to establish waterfowl hunting on the property in the months of October through February or October through March, somewhere in that time frame. But during the non-busy seasons, they would have established, what they've indicated, they would have established locations, and there would be a sign-in box, and you would sign in that you were going to those locations, and that's where you would do the waterfowl. I've received some people that like that. I've received a few comments from people knowing the proximity of the trail and the lake safety.
Okay, I've read the lease and I have no problems with what it states. Do you want to adopt it tonight?
No, it's not ready to adopt. I just wanted to throw it out there for you all to look at. I would like to wait and see if we receive any comments back from DGS, the Department of General Services, and have the state.
Oh, they
give us
haven't got
final
anything.
approval of it before we act.
When are we expected to hear back from them?
Do not have a date on that.
Okay. Okay, before we go into closed meeting, Mr. Byer, do we have anything else to bring before the board?
Yes, one item, Ms. Lori Gwynn has provided me with an unpaid tax list that
I have
we're
one.
going to advertise.
See, we're gonna cover this in closed session.
No,
But we can't discuss it in closed section.
no.
It's a contract modification, why can't you?
Let's get through this and then we'll talk about that one.
All right.
Reason it's on your board package, there were, on the previous copy, there were several that had 1, 2, 3, 4 sets that were some rounding things, and I was unable to get in touch with her before we finalized the board package, and she printed these off. And basically, this is the total list of the unpaid taxes for the last tax year, and typically, we run this in the newspaper, just one that has verification to proceed with advertisement or with the printing of this in the newspaper.
Do we have a total amount of how much this is? I know it's not on this.
No, sir, we do not, and I did not receive it as an Excel spreadsheet. So I did not have the total.
So we need a motion and approval to put this in the paper. I entertain a motion.
I so move.
Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, is there anything else?
The only other item was that which was presented, which the Economic Development Committee discussed the other day. What we have there, we have received a proposed change order request, but we requested additional information which has been attached, and if the Economic Development Committee wishes to bring it up at a later time, we can bring it up at a later time. However you would like to proceed.
Have they went through this?
They
have they-
they went through everything except the last 2 pages, that's what we talked about. And the last 2 pages are the additions that they requested.
And when, is it something that we need to handle prior to the next meeting of the Economic Development Committee meeting?
We would need to have a call meeting for them to discuss it prior to the next board meeting.
Okay.
Would you like the other opinion of that?
I'll give you a.
We've already discussed it. This is just more delay. If we don't deal with the sticky wicket, we're just kicking the can down the road. And quite frankly, we've discussed it. We were in general agreement, but we decided that it ought to come to the board. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, without our recommendation, so the board would have input to it. So Stephen, I don't see what would change, but I'm willing to listen to them. If they think they've changed their mind because of these last 2 pages,
What are we talking,
Well,
we talking about the
what-
lane
what
group?
we got here,
What are we,
What the proposal is, in order to, we have removed our engineering firm from contracting business.
and that was done some time
That
ago.
was done a long time ago. So what this presented was, when the bids go out, we have changed the documents that the questions do not go to the engineering firm, that the questions will come to the county. Now, if the county needs guidance from the engineering firm, we have to go to the engineering firm, and what they were providing us with was their rates for providing that service. They gave an estimated value of what it was, but basically they gave their rates as to what the services was. What was not included in the original submission was the sub-consultants that said cost plus 15%. And the committee requested that we go back and get the rates for the sub-consultants. So the 2 pages on the back were the sub-consultants, the Power Cool engineering rates, and the ProSim rates were provided, so that we had a dollar amount to go with those rates. that they have provided this was just to give us a document stating what the rates would be. It's not a 25% markup, it's not a 50% markup, it's a 15% markup, and these are the hourly rates for the staff and would have to address and answer questions. Obviously, our goal would be to answer any questions that we can in-house, but as Mr. Vaughn says, there are some design questions that we'll need to go back to them for clarification in the bidding process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
same discussion we had in the last committee meeting. If you'll compare the lane standard A&E, and this is the reason we brought up the question, their principal senior engineer is $145 an hour, senior project engineer, architect, project manager, $120 an hour. Now you go over to the subs, theirs is $155 an hour for principal engineer, right down the line, plus the 15% that goes to Lane for calling them and telling them, we want you to take a look at it. They're going to mark that up an additional 15%. Now, this is a cost saving that I've been talking to y'all for 2 years about. It's a rat race. Everybody, and strike that. That's business procedure that keeps adding everybody that touches it, marks it up. And we don't need that. We don't need to be paying more money because, Mr. Vaughn, you answer this so you can get your name in the paper. Right now, if the drawings were almost perfect, which there's no perfect drawings, and I've said that to Bobby or to Mr. Lane, but most of these questions are going to be based on things that are unclear or errors and omissions in their drawings. So why should we have to pay for them to clarify what they did the first time?
Yes, sir, it's called request for information. We were wanting that clarification. It should go back to the designer.
Yeah.
Has the most knowledge of what he intended to design.
Well, that was very politically put, but what do we get out of it? He's not going to say I made a mistake. One of the questions that we've been told, it's not in writing, but we thought the contractor could figure it out.
But if we have a question, it goes back to them, we pay for it.
If I may, statement that help us make about contractor figuring out, you use the example of the flying buttress beams underneath the foundation. And there's a lot of rebar in there and they're 14 inches wide. Contractor can't figure out how to do that. You're going to pay a premium for that work.
At the bidding.
Don't misunderstand me, I'm not advocating this one way or the other, I'm just trying to indicate this is.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, this is what the proposal is.
So that's why the courageous committee didn't make a recommendation. We know what we would do with it, but that we thought the whole board ought to talk about it.
Well, what would you do with it?
I wouldn't pay it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think we should either. I mean, they should. I mean, if something's wrong in the drawing, we paid them to give us a set of drawings. And if there's drawings or if there's questions on the drawings from the contractors, they should clarify their drawings. We shouldn't have to pay for them to clarify their drawings.
But to go back to my original question, if we do have to clarify and get them involved, we pay for it.
If we
Is that not
accept
what
it-
we're saying?
If we accept this,
Yes.
If what?
If we accept this proposal, yes, we would pay for it. But I don't think you're going to get anybody on the committee that's going to recommend that we vote.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought that you all were saying that if there were questions that we couldn't answer, that it would go back to the Lane Group, and
That's
if we
what
went
the
back to the Lane
Lane, that's what the
Group,
Lane Group is wanting us to agree to. They're wanting us to
all
agree
right, so
to
then
these
you're saying if
terms.
we don't accept this, then if there's any questions about anything, we don't pay the Lane Group to clarify anything? That's what you're saying?
Not exactly. If they go back to an era, which they've admitted, And here again, they're late delivering their corrections. That addendum was supposed to be free, right? Because that was fixing. They made a shot at getting paid for that, but that didn't fly. We're waiting still today, and they're past the date. Stephen knows the date. Martha can find the date in the minutes that they agreed that they would have these corrections made. Well, that has passed, and because my English is so limited, it's a cock and mamie stall is why they haven't delivered anything.
So you're saying that they're purposefully not clarifying it so that questions will be asked?
I couldn't answer that, but I would like to inject that y'all take time to look at this document. Right here's page 1. This was the first thing we got, is all legal terms, that if we agree to this, I think we've agreed that these legal terms stated in here are part of it. And I know you don't want to read it, but you need to read at least a few parts of it. I assume, Mr. Bone, you've read page 2 and 3 on legal terms. Do you agree it reinforces their original intent that if we change anything, they're not responsible for anything? And that has to be litigated. We can't agree to that.
Well, maybe for procurement sense, the contracting officer pays what this document does. It puts all the risk on the county and the risk on the design.
And there's a reason for that.
RFI's request for information, is that what that is? What is?
Yeah, that's what RFI stands for.
Well, Mr. Barr, I think you need to call Lane back and have him back down here with the Economic Development Committee.
Well,
And
just a
just-
little bit of guidance, Mr. Trail. What you're wanting, is a clarification within the documents that, that errors and those things obviously should not be charged for, but if there are other items or that are not due to errors, but any other items, or we spell out what those would be that we're willing to accept the charges for?
Us lowlifes that are in the A&E business don't make errors because you're liable for them. They're all omissions. Gary, answering your question and his, I don't want to do anything but to protect the county. We're buying into something here that the key word there is 25,000 is just an estimate. It's going to grow higher than that. I also believe that the pat answer is going to be our way or no way. Then we're back in square one. They're not going to admit that anything they've done is wrong. And Stephen, you've been in most of the meetings. Have they ever, other than Bob Lane, admitted that anything was wrong?
We've had so many meetings, Mr. Hale, I could not answer that question, but.
Oh, you're not under oath. You can answer the
Right,
question.
but, okay, this agreement says that if there are questions that we pay, it doesn't talk about mistakes or anything like that. But my question is then, if there's a question, we don't contact them. The county makes the decision.
Not necessarily.
No.
If you had a question, and we're talking about mainly structural details right now, you get another structural opinion other than theirs, and if it says we can do it this way, or this don't make sense, you have an open pre-bid. You know how they go. The contractors, you throw yourself at their mercy, they can ask questions. If at that meeting, and they're not going to be there, Lane's not going to be there, if they ask Mr. Bond, or the committee, I don't know how we're gonna handle that meeting. How do you do this? Well, the county goes back to them and says, how do you do this? Their pat answer is, it's gonna be right there in the detail. Just do what the detail tells you, and we're gonna pay for that opinion. But nothing's changed, Gary. They're telling you, do what we told you to do in the plans. There's two questions here. We, right now, Stephen, don't know what they've changed that we asked for,
Where we've not received it.
because they weren't on time delivering that. One of the questions that Mr. Dalton asked, which is valid, was that they position the building. They agreed that they would do that, right? That they would position the building.
Yes.
Now they're saying they can't position the building until all the work is turned in by Baker. And Bill, how long would you say Baker has got to do that?
Yesterday, I was promised by the project manager to have the as-built topo of the building pad environs large enough the building can be estimated by close of business Friday.
And was that a principal that can make it happen, or was that the job superintendent?
Mr. Andrews, the program manager,
Okay, so on Friday, we have another target date that they're going to turn the documents over to Lane, I suspect.
the electronic files will be moved somehow, yes, sir.
Okay. And then we're still at the mercy of Lane, saying they can't address all these other things till that one thing is addressed, and that's just not true. Think about it. If you were building a house, you don't have to know every bit of the topo on the property to locate the house. And normally, under normal situation, you would put the house where you wanted.
You're not talking about elevation, you're just talking about coordinates.
I'm talking about coordinates and elevations, but with what's out there, and Bone can answer this, I wouldn't be afraid to call that 0 on those four corners, or 100 on those four corners, and go ahead and build a building. Most buildings are not done that well. But these are just more delays. There's strategic delays. I wish every one of you take time to read these 2 pages that they put in here for a reason.
Well, let me just comment
Okay.
on that. And I apologize if this is as convoluted as what it was. I did. These standard terms and conditions from the Lane Group that
Yep.
are in here their standard terms and conditions dated January 1st, 2013,
Yep.
are already on all of our contracts with them already. This
Right.
is no change from anything.
I agree with you.
And the standard billing rates are the same that's been in the contract from the beginning. So this is no additional or nothing new that has changed right there, just for clarification on that.
Okay.
The proposal is the language, which I understand what Mr. Rail is saying, the concerns about the proposal language. The 2 items on the back, the power cool rates and the pro sim rates are new. We did just receive those. That's what the committee recommended, and it sounds like they're higher. Since they are higher, maybe our committee wants to discuss that with the Lane Group when we have them come in. So obviously, this is not ready for action by the board at this point in time. I just would recommend that we have a meeting with the Economic Development Committee to review this, also to discuss these timing concerns, these addendum concerns, as soon as possible with the Lane Group so we can move forward.
Well, there you got it summed up. We're all here, and we could go into recess for 10 minutes, and we'd have that meeting over with. Do you think any chance Lane is not going to defend these prices? We've never known them before, Stephen.
No, I agree.
And we had no reason to, because we don't have a contract with these
We
people.
don't, I agree.
Now, go back to what you said, reiterate what you said. In every contract we've done, these documents are already in place in page 2 and 3. There was no reason to reiterate those, except in legal, they could say they weren't, we could say they were not part of this document. This is a different contract, extension contract. So they've carefully put these in here that will tie us to these things, and they're unholy in what they're doing here by adding these.
I'm just indicating the original contract had it. Our amendment number 1, I just pulled up to look at it. It had the same terms and conditions attached to it. But yes, they are identified by reference here and added, just like they are on the other changes that we made to the contract.
I agree with everything you've said. They're there for a reason, though.
Yeah.
Question, Mr. Chairman. If we can't go into closed session and talk about this, can you recess, let the committee, and y'all can stay in here and tell tall tales, and it won't take us that long to come back with a recommendation, and we won't have any delay.
How you go?
Make a recommendation right here.
Yeah.
In this situation.
Well, we poll it. Stephen, are you ready to make a recommendation?
Yeah, I recommend that we don't accept it.
Charlie?
That's my
And that's my opinion.
That's a quick recommendation.
Yeah, I mean,
We
if
saved
you're
2
not making a
weeks.
recommendation to accept, then there's no action needed right here unless you just want to make a motion to not approve this agreement. As long as you don't approve accepting
No,
it,
we
it's
don't,
not approved.
it's not approved. So,
I would like guidance as to how you'd like to proceed.
That's what I was going to ask. If we just don't do anything, where are we in time? Do they go back and start this clock ticking again by coming up with another proposal when they're late on what they've agreed to do?
well, I agree with you. I mean, you know, I don't understand why they're so late on everything to but if this is something that they presented to us for us to accept, if we don't accept it, we're going to go back to them and tell them we don't accept this. So, I mean, there's nothing else. What else can we do?
We need to make it clear that we're not going to pay for their errors or misconceptions. And I think that's the biggest
Yeah,
thing.
if they got omissions, you know, in the plans and the drawings and stuff, and they correct them, that's something that we shouldn't pay for. Now, if there's something that has got to be changed, then that may be a different story. But I don't think we need to.
Well, I will have that discussion with Mr. Lane tomorrow morning. I will also advise him of the concerns about the addendum. I do know that they are working and trying to put all this together as one addendum, addressing the concerns that were there. But part of what they wanted to have was what Mr. Vaughn said that we provided, and that's where I asked the question, and here I asked the question to the Economic Development Committee, and I asked the question, I've asked Mr. Vaughn several times to have Baker given the dimensions and everything, the elevations, it's like where the building is, areas that they've got finished, not holding everything up, waiting for all of those dimensions. So Friday is the date that they've given us, they'll have all that information. We can give that to the Lane Group, and I will talk to them about when that addendum will be to us to have. There's also, as we talked about last time, clarification on the stormwater management plan. They are still working on with DEQ.
Well, I also want you to stress to them how frustrated the board is getting with all these delays. I mean, it's week after week after week, and I'll tell you, in my opinion, if we ever build anything else, it'd be the last time I'd ever vote to have the Lane Group to prepare anything. And that's just my opinion, and I'll stick with that.
Let me just clarify for my own edification, for my own, understanding, because I'm kind of out of the loop on a lot of this stuff. If we don't have an agreement with Lane, all questions come to us, and we ultimately decide all design and construction questions. Is that right?
Partially right.
Well, what part is not right, Joe? I mean, I'm not being ugly, I just,
Well-
what part is not right?
If you read these things thoroughly,
But we won't have that agreement.
they're in every one of them, according to Stephen.
Well, so have we approved it?
They absolve that if any changes are made, that they're not responsible for anything. That won't, I don't think that would stand up in court. They might win on one issue, but they can't duck the whole thing because you make a change. You agree with that, Bill? It becomes very site-specific of what impact one change had. The other thing is something, and I'm not rubbing any salt here, but from day one, I told everybody, they're never going to have anything to do with designing this building, which now they admit in saying in these documents that they're not responsible for the building, that they're riding on the stamp from the metal building people. But when we asked that question, they said, oh no, our engineers check and verify every dimension of that building. Selective memory seems to run rampant in this building, but they said that, and it's in the minutes, that we check like they were justifying their cost. We knew that they were never going to touch that building as far as the framing and the structure and that. It is their responsibility to come up with footer. That concrete footer for those reverse buttresses is a local name we've given, odd design. It's not the best way to do it. And we know it's not the best way to do it. They're going to stick to that to the grave and beyond, that that's the only way to do it. And I'm not in favor of the county paying for something that's not right.
But in that case, what you're saying is that's a difference of opinion on design.
No, it's the difference of physics, reality. Physics don't lie.
Well, okay, but from what I'm hearing, I'm just, I play devil's advocate a lot.
You do it well.
Is that, I think what I'm hearing is that we take the responsibility of answering the questions. If we can't answer the question, then we have to figure something out, or if it's a mistake, we have to show that it's a mistake. But if Lane Group disagrees with that, then our choice is legal action. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, you want to hear the solution? Is if we open our minds and we go ahead and put this stuff out to bid, if the contractors come up with a better way to do it, which I assure you they will, and they give us a submittal, a stamp drawing of how they want to do it, we don't need Lane. We've got a stamp drawing by another Virginia registered stamp. And Lane don't get paid, and the job don't get slowed down.
You're talking about a change in, in design, that the contractor, if they have an engineer that can draw it and can put that engineering stamp on it, that if we choose to change it, we can. I understand that, but that, well, okay.
Well, that puts the liability on whoever stamps the drawing.
Gary, what they're saying, if we come up with that, it's got to come back to them for their blessing. And that's not going to happen. They are not going to accept that.
What did you just say? What's got to go back to them for their blessing?
If we do this, they're expecting that to come back for them to review it for their blessing.
No.
Well, that's what my opinion is.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the way this reads, the county may need assistance in preparation of addenda to the plan. Questions and RFIs may be handled by the appropriate design team member. The scope of work is modified to address the assistance to the county. It is not saying the county shall request their assistance. This is just so, this is the county, if we request their assistance, this is the rate we are paying for what we request. I don't read this, I'm sorry, I don't read this anywhere as saying this is it. Now, this section 5.2 that you're talking about, client agrees to waive any claim of liability against the engineer resulting in errors, omissions, or inaccuracies due to defects or deficiencies in the information that is provided to the engineer by others or outside of the engineer's control. And that's what we're saying. We realize if we accept another design plan of something that comes in that is not what they designed, and another person that's stamped off on that, they're waiving themselves of any liability.
Well, then they should.
Change
Yep.
the plans. That's understood, yes.
Yeah, that's one paragraph. I think an easy way, if he'll do it, let Mr. Vaughn give us a question that if we get an RFI, and I'm sure you can come up with one, what would you kick back to Lane for an opinion? Give us any example.
For example, you pointed out that the buttress goes from a thicker moment area to a smaller at the end. The contractor might come back and say, why not do this as a straight grade beam? And if you go back as a change, request for information for design.
And we would pay for that.
We would, and we would not make that decision at our level, because as soon as we make that change here, we absolve the PE's stamp at Lane of any liability at all. And that means we have to go back to them for them to be consulted with and say yes or no.
Okay, but if we don't have any agreement with them, once they've handed us the drawings, can they just say, you've got the drawings, you're not contracting with us to do this, they're yours?
Well, basically, if we wanted to ask that question, they just have to say, we're gonna be charging you, and this will be what we're charging, whether it's 1.15% markup, or they come back to us at that time and say it's 1.5% markup, or whatever it is. We would have to be negotiating with them each time if it's something we determined we needed to go to them and ask for assistance.
And even if we did.
But in the situation where we do not have an agreement,
Yeah.
could they refuse assistance?
I'm telling you that I believe they will turn down everything that is contrary to the way they figured it out as a matter of dilatory pride.
Well, but I'm just asking, can they refuse assistance if we don't have an agreement with them?
They will say, sir,
Now,
put the professional stamp on there, build it the way it's designed. As soon as you make one change to it, they have no professional liability.
They say that in there.
Okay, but let me go back to my question. It's a, yes or no.
I do not know the ethical dilemma if they have to answer the question. I mean, obviously, we would have to agree to pay them to answer a question.
But they could say, we don't care if you pay us. We've done this, this is yours. You all said that you're going to take it and, take it and run with it.
I couldn't see them doing that from a professional
Yeah.
engineering firm, but I understand what you're saying.
That would look bad with anything that anybody else would come and ask for their, for them to do anything for them. If they did that.
I see there's 2 points. One of them is when it's under construction and there's some value engineering that comes in. That's one time that you may decide, no, that, we agree with value engineering and we're not going to go back to them. The other part is during this bidding process of if there's 2 or 3 firms. And the reason why this is different, we took out contracting bidding from it. So we've done 2 or 3 water line projects and just in the short time that I've been county administrator, we finished up the bid on the sewer project during that time frame. And as we know, typically, the plans come out, then when the bids are being looked at, a lot of RFIs come in to the firm at that point in time, and they make their addendums and changes, and there's no additional cost to us because we have paid for that up front, and we're paying it for the contract and the bid.
That's part of the contract document.
Yeah. In this situation, where we have removed them out of contract and bidding, that's why it's coming up as a separate change order request here, or an addendum to that, to document what those contracting services were. Previously, it was 45,000, 54,000, I don't remember what the figure was for contract and bidding. I could pull it up.
Well, yeah, they said that's where all of our profit is with Lane.
And had that remained and they doing all the bidding, all these questions that they would be responding to, answering, whatever, would all be part of that process, whether it's $10,000 worth or $30,000 worth, those would all be part of that. So, I understand what the concern is that Mr. Hale's raised, and I can take this back to the Lane Group and try to get some clarification from them on that.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to bring up?
Yeah, let's ask one more question. Stephen,
Yes, sir.
at our last meeting, that Lane was at the Economic Development Committee, we had an agreement and timeline on things. Y'all got that in the minutes. We already know that they didn't deliver on number one. How is that affecting the rest of our timeline?
I'll have to look at that and see, Mr. Hale, part of that timeline that we talked about was dependent upon getting the final information from Baker Construction to go into those numbers and figures. And what was discussed in this meeting, discussed in that meeting, was trying to have everything ready for the bidding process by September 1st. As you know, the meeting, the individual some of y'all have been talking to about being a project manager expressed concerns as to whether or not it was going to be project manager. So Mrs. Vaughn and I have been discussing ways of preparing this bid document without having someone here to do it. We removed the Lane Group from it. We removed the project. We don't have a project manager here to do it. And we are in the process of working on that side. If we do a lump sum bid, it's not a problem. We can go ahead and bid this out immediately. It is the longer process of breaking these individual items out and determining what we are providing as owner-provide items, or if we're just going to bid those when we do those individual bids and provide those as items that come back to us as a value engineering, that we discount those out.
Well, I thought we had kind of come to agreement that we was going to put out one lump sum bid out just to see
What we talked
what
about
it was
was
cost.
lump sum and the other both to come up with, to make certain
Yes.
the value of it was to do it. Now, if you want us to go ahead and advertise the lump sum separate of that, we can go ahead and prepare that and get that out on the public a lot faster. And then, when that is coming back in, then we can be having the individual items going out to bid following that.
And that would be on the primary facility, because you gotta remember, y'all, the civil sheets up front, that y'all haven't really talked about, involve all the stormwater
Yeah.
management and the site work and all that. That Lane Group, who is designing, still hasn't got past the Commonwealth of Virginia DEP line for the support facilities, which have to be part of the package too. So y'all are really focusing on the primary facility and get that cleared up, kind of ready for bid, but the support facility stuff is still kind of limbo, because he's in touch right now with DEQ on getting that design finished.
I mean, what was the timeline on, that he give us to have that finished?
They had hoped to have the results back, but the comments that came back from DEQ, they still had, and that was just last week, they still had not met all of DEQ's requirements, so they're resubmitting to them.
And to be fair, I have told him, I said, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we should be finished with Baker. I got a snapshot in time of all the grading contract one facilities. That needs to be his starting point for the pre-existing condition, to use the stormwater term, for the second contract. But with all the comments that came back and all of the things that were on the stormwater response from Chapman and DEQ and Abington, I think we're going to be ahead of him resolving the comments anyway. But still, don't forget the supporting facility and get past DEQ to have a biddable document for site support also as part of the package.
So you're saying we can't bid the main building
You
out?
start the main building process, but then maybe just handle the final site work as an addendum 2 or 3, however it turns out, to get it in before the thing has to be a final bid. You can play the game that way, but you're realizing that you won't have a support piece until they get past DEQ, because you don't know what that picture's gonna look like.
You could bid it with what's in there, but it would be a revision or a change order.
That
To
would
cover
shorten
it.
your timeline, but at some point, we're still beholden to them, because you've got to get past DEQ on what the site support work's got to finish like, because he's changing some of the ponds, he's removing one of the stormwater things and having a pass-through channel, and all that stuff has to be passed by the DEQ, and that's what the design, remember, pre-existing will be whatever Baker finishes, that will be the pre-existing picture for the next phase. And he should actually have that to be able to have a complete buildable package. But y'all are talking about the primary facility, which is the lion's share of the work.
Hey, I have a minute to address that. This is what I've done for 40 years, and this ain't the first ox that's been in the ditch, and it won't be the last one. Now, we're talking really perfect world at what you've just said. There's no reason that we can't advertise that job within a week. We're using up 1 month of advertising. We're getting ahead of that, I agree. We can go right down and even sign a contract for the work. As long as we don't stick a shovel in the ground, we haven't violated anything. So waiting on DEQ is just absolutely wrong.
But it should be as close as possible.
Why? In a private job, Bill, which I don't think you've done many, money is everything.
Yes, sir. All the problems we had on phase 1, and you know they're going to be scrutinizing us.
But it's none of their concern as long as you don't do anything but paperwork for planning your future. I've got to tell you this war story because it's so relevant to what we're talking about here. We had a private enterprise connected to government over Carroll County about 10 years ago. 2 prominent Carroll County gentlemen, one of them the biggest taxpayer in Carroll County. You boys told the board, go ahead, and I'll underwrite this thing. In other words, if they needed money, he and another one was going to fork over the money to make this building happen. We went through a tremendous design and took out all the weeds and all the wishes, and as we're being told now, stakeholder input, all that. We went through that, got it all designed, put it out to bid, got a contract, went through 4 months of negotiating with the contractor to get the price within their range. And then they pulled out. They had a signed contract, and they pulled out, no financing. And I come to bat for the contractor and said, you owe that man something, because you've kept his bonding capability tied up for 1.5 years. You've gotten $300,000 or $400,000 work out of him trying to get this thing to work for you, so you owe him something. We had several mediation meetings that didn't go well about why we owed him something. Finally, the contractor agreed, I'm tired of wasting time with you people. Pay me $25,000 that I've had to pay to hold this bond open for this job, and I'll walk away. And the Carroll County Committee come back and said, we don't even have the $25,000. Will you give it to us on terms? Now, that's not right. There's not much in my life that don't fall within right or wrong. And the same thing here. If we delay this project until we get everything set, everything's perfect with DEQ, we won't be at this job this year maybe. And every day we waste, we're killing fundraising, we're killing our chances with the Tobacco Commission, and you're sure killing corporate involvement in that we're not putting the picture on the street. We're not doing anything positive. A very simple grading job, because of design, has gone terribly off the rails. I believe that, and I think you believe that. That's phase one. That's not even the building part.
We don't want to get into the same situation we had in phase one. You want it close as you can get it, because whatever changes happen in DEQ to get your stormwater permit would be a mod to whatever you award. Problem is exactly what happened to us on phase one. We lost all of October and 2 weeks of November because they didn't give an approved stormwater permit based on design review until we asked, 6 weeks after we had.
Right, but at the same time, we had a contract ready to go. If we'd waited until that point in time, it would have been another 6 weeks to 8 weeks later before we actually awarded the contract. So I agree with what Mr. Hale's saying. We've got to go ahead and have this out in the public, and we can proceed with this lump sum a whole lot quicker and get that on the agenda or on the website. We've already got Miss Druin has taken all of these documents here, taken the JCDC documents out of all of them. She has inserted the conditions of the contract that you all approved at the last meeting. She has all of that on a website ready to go. She has got the scan of the plans that the Lane Group has sent to us. That is sitting out there on a site ready to go to send to people so they can do this information. Those things are ready. We can go ahead and prepare this lump sum bid document and go ahead and get it out on the street. And we will review that with Economic Development Committee and proceed with it. That's ready. We will have to say stormwater management plan is not finalized. The bid will have to come in off of what is on there. And some things are minor changes they talked about on it. There are some others that will be some additional changes.
Stephen, that's one way to do it. My opinion, the right way to do it is bid that. But if you bid that job as a lump sum right now, it's going to come in over budget. And it seems like that lane would be glorified if that happens. And some of y'all have said, we got to go with their budget. You can add one part to what you've just explained, that we have each discipline broke out in the bid, and with the state being the state laws, general conditions, they flip back and forth. It can either be an additive bid or it can be a deductive bid. You can go either way, just so you say how it is. That way, and this is lay it out like it is, if, I don't believe this, but if the shell of the building come in at $3.4 million to totally dry the building in for the footers course first, build the building, we can still possibly get that building up this summer and winter depending on the weather, but it's no skin off of us whether it's the contractor's winter or it's our winter not doing anything. But if it's the contractor's responsibility, he's not going to ask for a delay in work. He's going to work all he can because he's got money invested and he wants to get his money back. So if, like you and I have been talking about a work session of how to break this out, it's not hard to break out because it's in the specs, things that go together section by section. It's just us having a meeting and decide which things work together.
The easiest way to do it, Mr. Hale, along the lines of what you're saying, to get it out there quickly, with what you're saying is to put the lump sum bid out there and do a deductive alternative to remove everything except the building and the shell and the footers and all that. And that way you at least get that price to get that in and get the building constructed and then build out the individual trades out of that set.
And they can be going on whenever. I mean, they don't have to wait to phase 1.1, say, is to bid your concrete footers, all your concrete if you want to, and just put in there that your finished slabs will be done last. and you'll tell the contractor when he can do it. Because you've got to get some of your electrical, some of your mechanical, and 95% of your plumbing is going to be under those slabs. So if you let those as two separate contracts, concrete-wise, there's no problem. But if you let all your footers and your support facility and the building closed in, then if we got lucky and got it up, now we also know it's going to take 2 to 3 months for this building to be built in a factory and get here. If things work well with stormwater management, the contractor can be putting these footers in and doing that other grade work that's going to be part of what you're talking about. We could possibly, with an easy December, we could have it under roof and the walls up. There's no reason that you can't get a better price putting in your fire prevention system, why lulls and lifts can go in there. It simplifies it. Everybody just stays out of everybody else's way and works. That's where your project manager comes in. Bulk of your rough wiring can be done at that time. Next spring, and this is trying to get everybody on the same boat here, you don't need your interior framing and your insulation of the office space, and that kind of work won't be done until next summer if we started right now. We're already late, and we're only talking about getting later. Now let's go back to the fundraising side. If we've got a structure out there, it's easier to sell advertisement. It's easier for the ARAC group to get people to sign up to pledge donation money toward building it that we don't have to fool with. That money will come in and will go out. Your job is that we got to play fair with them. The bulk of the money needs to go right now for building the building. But they've got to have some money to operate that facility that needs to be non-taxpayer money, but you can't take the grandest new buildings ever built and open it and operate it without some capital. That's just the way the world works. So I think that this is pretty tight walking, but we don't want to, I don't think we want to hem ourselves in by letting a lump sum bid without the ability to take the overage out, whatever the overage is. Let's just say, for what we've got right now, that we could build a building and dry it in. Let's just say that's all we can do. The building is there, and the people that are being asked to donate $100,000, $500,000 over 5 years will see a structure. When that money's there, then you let the award for the mechanical or the electrical, and I think plumbing should not be part of mechanical. It's not.
That's a very manageable bidding process, and to start in that manner, and that gives time on doing the individual trades. The difficulty was if we were going to bid out all those individual trades right now and breaking all this down, that is a tremendous amount of time.
But that wasn't ever what we talked about. Never.
Now, that has been what we've talked about.
No, it might have been what y'all were talking about, but it never was what I was talking about.
Bidding out the plumbing, bidding out the electrical, bidding out the lighting, bidding out the water, bidding out the walls. We've talked about us providing the sheetrock for the walls and doing the takeoff on the walls. So what I'm saying is, those are what we talked about doing. And I like the suggestion that you're saying, and we can run very easily with the lump sum bid, deductive alternative to get down to the building and the foundation and the concrete associated with that foundation only. Our through-wall penetrations need to be in there, that foundation work for where things run out. And that is a very easy bid for us to write up and do. Because when we got into the other parts of it, we'll just, if we're talking about in this process, we're bidding the walls and we're saying we're going to provide that as an owner-provided item, then we've got to do the takeoffs off of that to have that information to come out that we're going to provide this. You're going to be providing the metal studs and all of that. This is a much easier bidding statement to go ahead and start like that. It gives us a total lump sum price he gives us the building cards, and we'll start.
I
working on that
agree,
tomorrow.
and I agree with you, but he don't have to do the takeoff, and he don't have the staff to do the takeoff.
Exactly.
You just say approximately and let the contractor do the takeoff. You know, I've given you a number that there's approximately 24,000 worth of sheetrock.
Yep.
I could be off 2,000 feet either way because I just did simply. I took the length of the run times 2, took all the cross sections times 2, and then add the fudge factor.
And we don't have to know those immediately to bid it out, but we have to know what we are providing. in
Oh,
the
yeah,
process.
and that's not hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
All
It's
right,
not hard.
let me ask one last question, and then I'll promise I'll shut up. What, we do it that way, now, and I do agree with you, Joe, that if you're gonna bid it out, you can, bidding it out doesn't mean anything as far as, you know, until you start working, you know, so it could be bid out, ready to go, but if we bid it out, let's say the building, and the building takes the amount of money that is left, then what's our next step?
You weren't listening to that part of it.
Oh, I was listening to all the fundraising things and stuff like
Well,
that, but
you know
that's
how-
not a guarantee.
Well, nothing's a guarantee whether we'll be here tomorrow.
Well,
And how many churches, because we relate well to churches, how many churches never get built till he got the money in the bank? Very few. You build an idea, you build an image.
But we've also said, and you've said this, that taxpayer money is not gonna build this thing.
I said there wouldn't be any taxpayer money paying for this thing.
Well, we've paid $1.3 million for the land. We've
And
put
we know we'll
150,
get that back.
we put $150,000 already into operational, and what they've used that money for, I don't know.
Well, they haven't used that money. It's budgeted, they haven't used $150,000 in operation.
No, they probably use 15, 20,000 of it right now.
Well, but he's throwing out the big money.
Well,
because
I'm
it's in
saying
the
that
budget.
because it's in the budget, it's there for them to use.
Okay, but it's not seen as being spent.
Well, folks, yeah, I just, yeah,
Our bad press.
of course, I think the whole thing's been, yeah. But I'm sorry, I'm through.
Well, are you guys willing to say what's going to happen?
Well, I'm open for, I mean, you want
Let's
to
just clarify where we're.
clarify what we're going to do? I mean, y'all been arguing back and forth.
No,
We're
we've
not
been
arguing, discussing back and forth of bidding the whole thing out, then doing,
What we'll do, if this is acceptable to the board, we will get the lump sum bid ready to bid out, which is the entire project as it is, and then a deductive alternative to remove everything except the building itself.
I agree with that.
And, the building itself will be the steel, the metal, the foundation, and the necessary concrete inside that's with the foundation to be done. Now, that's,
And some minimal stormwater.
yeah, that'd be minimal stormwater.
Does anybody on the board have a problem with letting it?
Will he add one more thing? Put the doors on it, because you can't keep the weather out unless, we got two 16-foot doors at each end, and it will become a wind tunnel if we don't put doors up.
What about the storefront doors?
Well, they could be boarded up, because that's
This one must be boarded.
Yeah,
You're
they're-
talking about the end doors.
and the walk doors, they're gonna come with your building package anyway. All your excess doors, except those glass front entrances. And that's specialty work that will be a standalone bid. You don't want a plumber putting glass work in his budget. And that's a bad
The
example.
windows and stuff in the building,
I let the metal building guy put them in, Stephen,
that's my thought.
because he's gotta make them watertight, and he's gotta put the,
Holes to put plywood and stuff to
Well, right, and there's more to it. He's got to put the header in there, and he's got to put the seal in there, or the verticals to hold that window for the wind load. So that's a little rub between two things, so just make him responsible for that. Yeah, the building envelope, he's responsible for that. We're responsible for telling him where these other people are gonna have to have thimbles, where they're gonna have to have sleeves through the footer to get all the other things done. That needs to be poured with the footer.
I'm 100% ready to run with this stuff without any problem. I mean, this is a biddable package with the staff that we have here to get this out
Okay.
there.
Does anybody have any problem, let the county staff proceed? No. Does anybody have a problem? Then proceed.
We'll work with the Economic Development Committee as we're finalizing these things and getting stuff ready for, clarification. But,
What do you think the timeline is on that, Stephen? You and Bill will have to answer that one.
I would say that going that way, that we can still have that out before September 1st.
Okay. I don't want to go to the back of commission and it not be out to bid.
Nope.
And I'm starting this coming week calling members, but we're just twiddling our thumbs. Okay. With nothing else, I entertain a motion to go into closed session.
You ready?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meeting to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2371185, a matter involving a prospective new business or industry or expansion of an existing business or industry.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. In the closed meeting.
Yes, sir. Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.23712 the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
I have a second on ratifying the resolution for closed session.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Yeah.
The chair votes aye. Mr. Byers, any other further business to come before the board at this time? If not, we're adjourned.